and girls, circus queens and circus kings. Thanks for joining us for Maybe I Love You. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I Love You podcast. My name is Sean.
I'm Dara.
And today we are talking about love languages, but specifically, this one's about acts of service. And if you're not familiar with what love languages are, watch the other videos, perhaps get out from under the rock, because most people know. But love languages, there's 5 different ones. There's quality time, there's physical touch, there's words of affirmation, there's acts of service, which we'll be adjusting and talking about today. And then I think there's another one in there somewhere about gifts or something. Anyways, so if you don't know what your love language is, I strongly suggest taking a test. We have a link below, but there's probably a million online. Know what your love language is, and once you know your love language, have your partner do a love language test, and the two of you guys talk about the differences and how you guys can fill each other's love tanks. So this one's about acts of service. Acts of service is not high on our list.
Okay, so disclaimer. This is going to be a fun podcast because this is so low on my list, it almost doesn't need to exist. I'm really bad at doing acts of service, and I really don't care when people do acts of service for me, which is going to be interesting then how I've come to the conclusion it is important. Yeah. Even though for me, it's not something that I've given a lot of thought to before preparing for this podcast.
Yeah. This one's because it's so low.
Yeah.
But I do find interesting is when I was doing the research about which love languages are the highest and which one's lowest. Highest is quality time. Lowest is acts of service. It's like sitting at like 11.8% of America care about acts of service. But I think as I thought about it, though acts of service are both low on our list, I think there's little things to it that people can appreciate. Now, appreciation and feeling loved are completely different things. You know,
Agreed.
I do a lot of acts of service for her because I want to show her I love her, even though it's not one of my love languages, and it's definitely not one of hers.
Yeah.
But when I come back and she's like, yeah, you know, do you even love me? I'm like, but I did this and this and this for you to show my love. She's like, and?
Yeah, like and that sounds like really obnoxious, but I guess the way I see it is like dishes need to be done. I'll do them, you do them, we trade off.
Right.
I don't really see that as a way of loving me, but I do think we've said this time and time again with all the episodes we've taken on with love languages is that it comes from your childhood. Like a lot of it stems from your childhood, and I was thinking about it and looking back, I can't think of any examples of my mom really doing acts of service for my dad other than like cooking dinner or my dad doing any acts of service for my mom. It was just
doing
like,
it for you.
It was more just like we're a family, everybody has their role and everybody has like something they do. Like you take out the trash, you do the dishes, you do this. And so I don't think I grew up in a household where there was a lot of emphasis placed on how this shows love.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of it.
I think it is. And like she was saying is, you know, as you're little and you grow up and you get older, you know, up to like 6, 7, maybe 10, you see how people treat you that you care about, and they show you love through acts or through love languages. Acts of service is probably one that kids probably least appreciate because they almost feel like it's natural. Like if I take the kids to the grocery store and you know I let them grab something they want to eat. You know, they don't care. They don't understand that someone's paying for it. Like I remember they got a cookie and it was one of those free cookie samples, and I'm like oh I take a bite of the cookie and I'm like, oh, that was a good cookie, and both my kids are like, meh, cookies lame. I'm like,
but I would feel like that's more a gift. An act of service would be like baking them cookies.
But what I'm saying is they don't really appreciate anything, especially, you know, cleaning their room. Like if I were to go in and clean up Luke's room, does he like, oh, my dad must really love me. He cleaned up my room for me. No, he's like.
So here's one of the things that I found really helpful with acts of service.
Okay.
Because, and here's another, like just coming from a really honest place, which will probably turn somebody off, but I'm just being honest. I feel like as a woman, I have watched other women become, for lack of a better word, a doormat to like the housekeeper of their home. And so I think for me, there's also been a sense of like, I don't want to do too many acts of service because then it gets expected from
Right.
a guy. And then it's more like, it's not a way of showing love. It's like your role. And that sounds like horrible, but, without saying any names, there's someone very close in my life, and I kind of watch them do everything for their spouse, get up super early, iron their clothes, all these things. And it's like the guy didn't even appreciate it. And it's just like, but she loved acts of service, and I think that was her way of showing love, and he loved receiving them. But it almost became a role dynamic that I felt was really unhealthy. And so that's kind of my fear with it.
Well,
if I'm being really honest, that's a fear, is like, will this get taken advantage of?
Oh, I actually thought about that as we talked about this. Is the let's just call it the housewife role. Okay,
Sure.
and it could be the dude. I'm
Yeah,
not saying wife
yeah,
or-
just whoever,
but
like
whoever's
the
at house.
primary person taking care of the home.
And I have a friend of mine who the wifey stays home and never has worked. That is her. She does that.
Yeah.
I think it is she loves acts of service. So it's a
Could
way
be.
she's
Could
demonstrating
be.
love to her man is by taking care of all the stuff at the house. And now I've seen it on the flip side where there's a dude who stays home and his wife's a doctor. And
Yeah.
he's the house husband.
But like, I think the other thing is how to not get taken advantage of. If
Yeah.
acts of service is something you really love, and then the person you're with over time just begins to think that's just the normal dynamic of the home, and not that that's coming from a deep place of love.
Okay.
So I have something that I've like
Okay.
created.
Okay. Is
Because-
this gonna be one of those rhymes? Is it gonna be
Hey,
like
yeah,
again?
I try to do something.
She's
to
real creative,
razzle
and
dazzle it,
she'll
but
come up
it's,
with words or
it's
a
not, like,
rhyme
fine
or an
as ours.
interpretive dance to
Yeah.
to
No, don't worry.
demonstrate.
I'm not about to break out into a dance. I do
Okay.
have a steak dance, but that's different. That's if I'm like really excited about steak. I mean, how can you not be excited about steak? We live in Texas.
I'm
Like
sorry.
steak is a big deal.
You have a steak
Yeah,
dance?
I only do it like behind closed doors, but
Okay.
that really has nothing to do with anything.
I'm gonna take her to a steak
Yeah,
restaurant,
please
get this
do.
recorded,
Well,
and then
you know.
everybody can enjoy the steak dance.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so they just both start with O. That's at the finest
The
how
O's.
we're gonna learn together.
The O's of acts of service.
Yes. So I think it's the difference between seeing it as an obligation versus an opportunity.
Okay.
And I think if you frame it in that way, it's healthy, because obligation says I have to do this. Opportunity says I get to do this. Like oh, the dishes are piling up. I have to do this. That's an obligation, and that's where I get uncomfortable with acts of service.
Right.
But an opportunity to be like, oh my gosh, I have the time. I can go do this, and make the house look clean when you come home and have dinner on the table. If I can create joy in that moment and see it as an opportunity for you to love you versus an obligation, I
Yeah.
think it gives it less of a sting of a I don't know, and this just might be the way I have to frame it because it's been somehow like
It's a touchy-
messed up
it's a
for
touchy
me.
topic
But
for
I
her.
think there's other people out there that probably feel similar. Like, okay, how do I protect my my role and not feeling like I'm doing everything and getting taken advantage of or becoming a doormat, but still be a loving person? Because one thing I will say is that love is supposed to be selfless. And out of all the love languages, this is the one that's so service driven and so after Jesus's heart, to love and serve one another and put your spouse first and love like he loves us. And so I don't think, even if this is something that kind of makes you uncomfortable, I don't think you can do away with it.
No,
It's just seeing it in a
the
different light.
fundamental of this is it's a chore. I mean, nothing I've read about suggestions to deal with people that have acts of service as their love. Every one of them I read has it's a task. It's a chore.
It is a task.
you know?
Ironing a shirt, doing dishes, taking out the trash,
Right.
paying a bill, picking up the kids so your spouse can have alone time. They're
Right.
all task related.
Yeah, and so this is definitely right up the alley of what Jesus would want. So I
Yeah.
think it's important for you in a relationship
I
to
feel
do
convicted.
these. One of the things that I had said to her was, actions speak louder than words.
Yeah.
And this, as much so as I could tell her all day she's beautiful and I love her, yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is actions speak louder than words. So
And I think too, like and if you find yourself similar to how I'm feeling, I have to be appreciative when they're done. Because my temptation would be like, he takes out the trash or you do the dishes. I would be like, okay, good. They needed to be done. It was you or I.
that's Thursday. Finally, you're getting around to it,
No,
Sean.
but instead of saying like, because words of affirmation are huge for both of us,
Right.
saying, wow, I can't believe you did those dishes. Like, thank you so much. Like,
Yeah.
they were really piling up, and
And
that
she's
was
good
huge.
about that.
And I try to at least use gratitude because words are easy for
Right.
me. And instead of just seeing it like, well, it was me or you, we had to do it. I do it
I
sometimes.
flipped a coin in my
too,
head. For some reason, I keep winning every time I flip a coin in my head.
No, and I do think it is going back to the heart of serving someone. Sometimes you do that and you don't get appreciated, but if the person on the other end receiving can appreciate,
Right.
it really can make it more of a loving gesture than just a chore.
And you got to look at it as adoration for the person doing it and adoration for the person who did it. Luckily with the two of us, that's not one of our love languages. But if you're in a relationship with someone who is an acts of service person, it's huge.
It is huge.
And one of my exes, it was big in their love language.
Right.
And and if they came home and the house did look a wreck, or the dishes weren't done, it told them I didn't love them,
Right,
or
which
care
is
about
so
them.
interesting
And we
to
would
me.
fight about it, and here it is. I'm like, I worked all day. I did this,
Yeah.
I all these things I did.
Yeah.
And the truth was, none of that mattered to this individual. It was, the house not being a wreck when they got home.
Right.
So if I found myself, about 15, 20 minutes before they got home, like I'd beat them home and I'd run around the house
But
real
that's
quick.
love. That's love.
Yeah,
And hopefully it was appreciated and not expected.
and I think it was, and
Yeah,
that made it
that's-
so I now demonstrate act of service with you very
Yeah,
often.
yeah, you do.
And
You do.
and then when you get mad at me, you don't even care about him. But I understand. 'Cause
No,
it's not
and
a love
and
language
I'm
for her.
trying to get better at it because I think with my ex, it was expected because of the way he was raised,
Right.
and his mother. That's all she did was serve the family in that way, and I resented it because I was like, you're a strong woman. You could do this, you could do that, but instead, you're spending your entire day serving people around you who have become like so
Oblivious to it, yeah.
like they expect it. And so I think for me it was a bit of a pain point because I didn't want to turn into a role where I wasn't respected for other things I did too outside of taking care of the home.
And you do, that's one of those things that it can be overlooked really quickly
It
and easily.
can,
And then
it
it's
can.
like, man, I had 1,000 things I could have done, and instead I did this,
Right.
and it didn't get appreciated.
Right. And so I mean I've gotten better now because I feel like we're in a healthy place where we can appreciate it for each other, but it's never going to be something where we hold it against the other person because
Yeah.
it's not huge on either of our lists.
No,
I
she
did
probably does
read-
like it if it's cold outside and I jump out and start the car and get it all
Oh, I was
warmed
thinking
up
of
for her.
fire. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay,
it's-
that's like
I would've
romantic.
no, starting a fire, no. I'm more talking about starting the car or filling up
See,
her
but-
gas tank.
Can I be honest?
Yeah. Yeah, be honest.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I
Who
thought
gives
you.
a crap?
I know. I thought
You
you
want
were
to
gonna say-
shiver?
No, I thought you were gonna say like, and then I start a fire and like bring her a hot cocoa. Oh, that's kind of romantic. But starting
That's
my car.
quality time. That's
I
totally
feel like
different.
I don't know. I'll be like, I could go start my car. I don't. It's terrible. I don't know what's. I think it's this like rebellious, independent woman or something I've got going on that I need to sort out. But I will say I read something that I found really interesting, and that is that people in the creative industry, especially social media or stuff like that,
Okay.
that they are big on this. Which I thought is
Interesting.
weird. It was like bringing them a cup of coffee when they're working or doing things. They have a real soft spot for feeling like they're getting helped in this area. And I don't
Okay,
really understand
okay.
it because I feel I'm a creative and this isn't big, but I don't work in that industry.
But
so,
you know what,
but
that-
you do more graphic design, so can you speak? Because this is something that kept coming
it's-
up when I was
that's
researching.
interesting.
I
think
don't know
it's,
why.
I think it's the fact that someone is assisting. That's interesting because
Yeah.
if you do run out and grab me a coffee while I'm working,
Yeah.
and you bring it home, that coffee
you-
tastes just a little,
Little bit better. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I see that. I see that.
And so I can see that one. I think it's they understand you're trying to still accomplish something. Whether maybe the whole concept of chores or an act or work is still work. So maybe me and how I dedicate so much time to work for my boss
Yeah.
is maybe a way of me, as an act of service to the company. So
Yeah.
you assisting me in that means that my load is lighter.
I think that
That's
might be
interesting.
it.
I've never
yeah.
looked at it that way, but
No, and I saw it and I was like, well, what do I do with this? Another thing I'll say, if this is hard for you, just because I have to preach the choir here, is that Colossians 3:17, I would suggest memorizing it because it's one you're going to need if you're going to get better at this. And it says, whatever you do in word, that's easy for words of affirmation, or deed. Do everything in the name of the Lord, giving him thanks. So it's like, this is a deed I'm doing not only for my spouse, but ultimately unto the Lord, showing that love. So I think that's like something I have to frame it around, is this isn't just about me serving you, but this is also a call to do things well unto the Lord with your actions and your deeds and your words to other people.
Yeah, okay. You know, and yeah, I could see that. I could see that with, you know, especially with the deed part is, you know, if let's just say your love language is acts of service,
Yeah.
and let's just say that you've dedicated your life to servicing your husband or wife,
Right.
okay, and then they come home and they do zero of that acts of service back to you,
Right.
then you're not being like Jesus.
Right, right.
And second one is that probably could really hurt their feelings and
Yeah.
not make them feel loved.
Oh,
And
for
You just
sure.
kick your shoes off in the living room after they
And
already
you don't even
mopped,
notice.
and,
That's
you know,
like
you just
so hurtful, I
leave
would
your paper
imagine.
sitting out. You're just making dishes. You don't appreciate. You don't give them any. I
Like-
can see that being, and it's probably a reason why so many times I've seen it in the movies. You see movies where the you know the wife's like, oh golly gee, he's just, you know, and she doesn't seem like the relationship's good, and it's almost it almost can be viewed as an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
Is because
There's no
he's not
respect.
giving any back.
There's
Yeah.
no
He's
respect
not
on
doing
both ends.
deed.
Hey, I respect you, so I made sure the home was clean when you came home, but I don't respect you enough to then come in and say, wow, the place looks great,
Right.
and I'm going to put my shoes up.
No,
Yeah, I
don't
think
think
it's
anybody
that.
wants the bulk of the housework to be thrown in their
No.
lap.
And another thing I'll say too, which this is going to sound so selfish, but you got to start somewhere, right? Is if this is hard for you, start with things that you don't feel are the obligation, but the opportunity that you might enjoy doing and you can create some joy around. So for instance, I love cooking. That's never a chore for me. I really enjoy cooking. So that is still yet an act of service. So if I can have dinner ready when you come home and cook, and that's just, you don't have to stop at the grocery store, we don't have to eat fast food, that to me, I won't have resentment about. Now, do I have to do the things I don't like to? Of course, we all have to make sacrifices, especially if you're with someone who loves acts of service. But at least start with places that you don't do with a bad attitude. Like cooking is easy. I don't mind like tidying something up. But if there's ones that are really hard and you begin
Laundry.
to feel like someone's secretary, guard it. Because I think there are people who get taken advantage of. I do think you need boundaries, and I think you need to express that to your spouse if it's out of alignment.
Yeah, we do share a lot of the duties, and it's mostly,
Yeah, we
you know,
do.
maybe that's because both of us understand it just need to be done.
Yeah, we both are busy.
So when I see her touching, doing the kitchen, or cooking food, I'll go in and start doing the dishes
You
while
do.
she's doing it.
You really do.
When she's unloading the dishwasher, I start unloading the dishwasher.
Yeah.
She's really good about washing stuff, and the saying, and I don't know if this is the saying, it's just
Is
funny.
it?
Is
Okay.
it like it takes 1 hour to do a load of laundry and 7 to 10 business days to fold it?
Oh my gosh, it's true.
So I don't
I
think
just reran the towels because they smelled like mold because they were in there for 2 days.
You just gotta, you gotta keep
So
it
it shows
fresh.
I'm really great at acts of service.
But that's. I think it's most importantly is when I do whip out the laundry basket and start folding laundry. As much as I tell her, because I know she doesn't like it. Nobody likes folding it, but I actually do enjoy folding.
I
per
don't mind
se.
the folding, it's putting
Putting
it away.
away.
I have so many clothes, this is ridiculous, that like it's a chore to figure out where to stick the things that are clean.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's another storage room when it's dirty. And it's like, okay, I have now room, I can see everything in my closet. But
Finally,
if it's
this
all
is where that
clean,
shirt's been. It's
it's,
been hiding
if it's,
on the blackboard.
yeah, if it's all clean, it's like I can't fit it. And so it's like I see you folding it and hanging it, and I'm like, oh God, where am I
gotta put
going
it
to
away
put
in a
this?
minute. Yeah.
So-
So sometimes I'll walk into the laundry room and I'm like, I'll have everything ready, and I just walk out. I'm like, okay, Dara, meet me in the closet. And she's like, okay.
Oh,
And she goes,
jeez.
and I just stand there like a mobile closet. Like, okay,
Where you
there you go.
gonna put it?
Oh, wait, I got a blouse over here.
Oh, it's so bad. But okay, I will say too, maybe, just maybe, maybe because we're both kind of equally blah on this one.
Yeah.
How exciting that it actually balances itself out.
Right.
Like neither of us really complain about things because we both kind of do them at our own comfort level, and it's like very much so. Like I'm cooking a meal, you're doing the dishes, but we both pick up our plates. Like maybe because it would be hard to be with someone where it's like this,
Yeah.
Ours are kind of you're more than me, but it's kind of like this enough where we can delegate in a way that neither of us get annoyed
Nobody
or
wants
offended.
to get nagged because they didn't, do something.
Right. I think that's it, right?
But we're pretty good about knowing how to keep a house clean, so that's one thing. But I've lived with roommates before where I've had to be like the housewife with them, and I'm like,
You're
yo,
the clean
dude.
one.
I'm like, okay, man, where's all the plates? And I go in their bedroom and they're just like stacked, and I'm like, you're disgusting. Get in there and clean the dishes. Put the toilet seat down. We got guests coming over. Scrub out the, and
I think, yeah, and I mean, that's
just don't be gross.
That's
I think that's,
dreadful. But
anytime you're dealing with it, I would say just be aware of the fact that every time you leave something where it doesn't belong,
yeah,
it needs to be picked up. And if you're not the one picking it up, it means that you're literally asking your partner to.
And they may
do
then
that.
not see it as an act of service. They may then see it as an obligation.
Abuse, like a mean or
and that's what
you
you
love 'em.
want to avoid is
Yeah.
making it more opportunities to serve versus obligations to fulfill a role that you feel you should be doing. And just a word of advice coming from a place of love: if you feel this is unhealthy and there hasn't been boundaries, definitely have a conversation about it, because even if this is the most natural, loving thing you do for your spouse, if they're not saying thank you, if they're taking advantage of it, if it's become just so unhealthy, you may in time resent the acts of service. And then it kind of defeats the purpose of doing them in a loving way, is because now it's become expected. And I hate to see that happen to people, because I think people who are good at this have such a servant's heart.
Yeah.
Like their heart
Agreed.
is to serve, and wow, how beautiful. We can all learn from that. But those are the people that tend to get taken advantage of. And that just makes a loving thing that should be so beautiful kind of seem almost not attractive to someone on the outside looking in, because it's like you can see the dynamic is unhealthy. So just guard it and make sure, if you are the one receiving it, that you're really appreciative, because I mean, it is the ultimate act of love to just serve someone and not even sometimes get a thank you.
Yeah,
It's
very true.
So
that's what we got on the acts of service. The other ones are way more informative.
I know, it's like words of affirmation. We'll
Got it.
pull up a chair and grab a coffee. We
Yeah.
will be here for 4
Acts
hours.
of service, mow the lawn.
It's so funny, because even before we started this, I was like, do you got some stuff on this? And he's like, yeah, some. Like a half a page. And I'm like, yeah, I have a couple pointers, but
Yeah.
we're like, this is going to be a short one.
Yeah, and
So
apparently
maybe share your advice with us.
89% of people in America think the same way. So don't
Yeah.
worry, we're not alone. But if you are an active service person, just communicate and
Mm-hmm.
and do it out of a loving way. I think that when you come to somebody, don't say I'm tired of you not doing this or this in the
Yeah.
house. Instead, go, hey, it really hurts my feelings. You can't even put your underwear in the hamper.
Right. Or make a list like of these are the things that would mean so much to me.
Yeah.
Because you know what? It's maybe cleaning the garage means nothing to that person, but cleaning up the house is a
Right.
huge deal. Like for me, if I'm cold, apparently turning on a fire is a big deal.
Yeah.
Starting my car, I feel like I could do that myself. So have a list like, hey, if you get me coffee in the morning, or I'm going to be late at work, and you can have the kids already taking, have their bath and have the food on the table.
And like ironing
Make a
clothes, like
list.
that's I think when she I'm not even running late or anything, but she'll go iron a shirt for me, and it's like, oh man, that nobody likes to iron, but here it is. She did it.
I don't mind it.
So what I've learned through this conversation with you guys is I'm not going to waste my time starting the car.
That's cool.
Taking out the trash on time. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to focus on things that.
So next time you see us, everything's gonna smell, but you won't smell it, and his shirt is gonna
It'll
be
perfectly
so
ironed.
wrinkled.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure. If you have any questions or whatever, please hit us up so we can get more information. This podcast was developed to really kind of show you what it's like for us as we learn more about being in a relationship. So thanks for letting us chit chat with you, and thanks for your time. And I hope your house is pretty and clean by someone else, because they love you.
Yeah, there you go.